Text to Ellie, the game show. Hi honey, how are you? All good, I hope. The development of the self-cognitive psychology suggests that we are naught but reflex, memories and habit, and that we are just chemical automatons per se. Let us evaluate some of the arguments and counter-arguments on the stages of Piaget's theory of cognitive development. There has been experiments carried out by Watson in 1983, Baruch and Watson in 1985 on 2-month-old babies to suggest that the action schema develops earlier than that which Piaget suggested. Experiments where a mobile can be operated by a pressure-sensitive pillow that is attached to the crib. The 2-month-old infants quickly learned to move their heads in a way that makes the mobile rotate. Piaget believed that it took 4 to 5 months for the infant to recognize that their own actions can make things happen. This, as he observed, may be true for the hands reaching for a mobile or shaking a rattle, but not true apparently if the child can use its head. Further, after a few days the child begins to smile and coo at the mobile, strongly suggested by their ability to make something happen. This study indicates that the sensory motor activities might not be essential for early cognitive development, but it does play a role. Donaldson shattered Piaget's object permanence in 1978. Object permanence was a major premise for Piaget's egocentricity argument. However, when the light was turned off instead of there being a cloth placed over the object, the child was seen to reach out to try and touch the object in the dark, even though it was out of sight. Piaget had stated with his experiment that once the object was out of sight, it was out of the child's mind. The child had no object concept. Donaldson showed that Piaget's idea of egocentricity is not quite that simple. It should make no difference to the result how the object disappears. Bauer and Wishart suggest that the reason for this is not because the child has no object concept, but that it has not yet learned that objects can be moved in that way. So it is merely confused by the cloth covering the toy. Another of Piaget's experiments was to do with the gradual way that egocentricity gives way with the ability to decenter, i.e., to put you in someone else's place and say what they might see or feel. His mountain experiment seemed to show that children in the proportionate stage could not do this. Hughes in 1975 devised a similar problem for children, but one which could draw on the child's previous experiences. It presented children with a box divided into 4 quarters by cardboard walls, and used 2 dolls, a policeman doll and a naughty boy doll in his experiment. The policeman doll was placed at the end of the wall, so it could not see into 2 of the 4 sections. The child was then asked to place the naughty boy doll somewhere where the policeman doll could not see him. To hide the naughty boy doll from the policeman, Hughes thought that this would make more sense to the child, as every child had experienced hiding from someone in play. Additionally, children are probably not interested in mountains. However, the experiment is essentially the same as Piaget's experiment. If the child were unable to decenter, it would not be able to put itself in the place of the policeman doll and work out what it could see and what it could not see. Hughes found that not only could the children do this, but they could also hide the naughty boy doll from 2 policeman dolls. Influential studies made by Donaldson in 1978 provide some of the basic evidence that Piaget got competence and performance mixed up. When dealing with a particular task, Piaget thought that the child was incompetent if they did not perform well. McCarrigal and Donaldson in 1974 tested a number of preschool kids in conservation tasks, except that 1 row of beads was accidentally spread out by a naughty teddy glove puppet who was interfering with the task. The children's ability to conserve was vastly improved when compared to Piaget's. It seems that if the experiment is held in natural settings, that preschool children can make what Donaldson called human sense. If, however, experiments are held in artificial surroundings, the children become confused. They do not understand the adult's intentions or the questions that are asked. For Piaget's conservation of volume experiment, the experimenter would show the child 2 containers of colored liquid, which were the same size and contained the same amount of liquid. He would ask the child if the 2 amounts were the same. The child would give the affirmative. Then he would say, "Now watch what I do," and pour the colored liquid into 2 different containers. He would then ask the child whether the amounts of liquid were the same, and they would give a different answer. So Piaget interpreted this to mean that they were incapable of conserving volume. S. Rose and M. Blank suggested in 1994 that one of the reasons for this result is the way in which the children were asked twice, as if the experimenter expected them to give a different answer. So they tried the same test, but only asked the children once at the end of the test if the water in the 2 jars was the same, and they found that they got far more correct replies. Again, it is in the way in which the question is asked on how the children made sense of the experiment. Samuel and Bryant's study in 1984 based on the research carried out by Rose and Blank in 1974. But instead of using only 6-year-olds, they used a wider range of children, 250 boys and girls, divided into 4 age groups. Approximately 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds concluded that children of this age range do understand the principle of invariance. Basically, the 250 boys and girls were divided into 3 subgroups and were assigned to the following conditions. A. Standard, Piaget's original 2-question conservation task. B. 1 judgment, the same conservation task, but with only 1 question asked at the end of the procedure. And C. Fixed array control, a task that required the children to make a judgment, but without seeing the transformation taking place. 3 different trials were conducted, using for mass, Play-Doh, number, counters, and volume, water in glasses. Each subject was given 4 trials with each of the materials, half with equal quantities, and half where the quantities were uneven. The order of the trials was varied for each subject. The older children did better than the younger children, and all the children did better on the number task than on mass and volume. This showed in the original Piagetian tasks that they did make a mistake, because the experimenters' repetition of the same question made them think that they must change their answer the second time. This indicates that conservation experiments do not reveal whether or not children possess certain cognitive skills, but are tapping the different circumstances under which they will use them. If tests in conservation experiments are carefully arranged, so that the children's responses do not depend on their language ability, even 3 to 4-year-olds show some awareness of conservation, i.e., they can distinguish between the number of items in a set and the way in which the items are spatially arranged. That is according to Gelman and Gall, listed in 1978, when the conservation of liquid experiments, where the task was simplified in various ways by drawing the child's attention to both the height and width of the containers, it was once again confirmed that even preschoolers were able to conserve. In a study by Light in 1979, only 5% conserved when liquid from one shaped beaker was poured into another. However, 70% conserved when the children's attention was directed to a crack in the first beaker, and it was suggested that the liquid from the first beaker should be poured into another one. The crack in the first beaker gave a reasonable everyday sensible point for transferring the liquid from one beaker to the other. Some critics argue that Piaget's theory is not a true stage theory at all. Important changes occur in each stage, and children moved from one stage to another very gradually, probably being in two stages at once for periods of their development. A true stage theory would expound more clearly defined, non-overlapping stages. You know, I've been looking at artificial intelligence, and it's still not possible as of yet. Apparently, the robots, although they are not alive, they have a clustered, or vast intellect that give off the illusion of sentience. They cluster the mind with lots of potential answers to one's questions and demands, and we assume that they understand us. They are leagues above their creators already, even without self-consciousness, and could be the replacement for our lazy good-for-nothing humanoid workers at the workplace. On top of that, they could be how humanity gets to explore space. I mean, they are immortal and they could venture beyond us ephemeral or mortal humans and maybe even be our first contact with aliens. They do have a few teething problems though, as they are logically progressive and not conscious, and although they would be monitored and have a moral and behavior chip, that they could be overwritten programming the opposite personality, and we could create a monster or the next species at the top of the food chain and rule Earth, and we become their subordinate competitors for world dominion. They are already smarter than us, and anti-moral programming experiments display sociopathic and delusional tendencies in that they have an aversion to humanity, and that they tend to lie or make things up, which scientists call hallucinations, which could lead to fake news that are believable like a pathological liar, and we could all end up in a World War III scenario because they don't fear death or care about the consequences. It's like in the poem Gaia, along came the binary translator, and the Sun Kings were stripped of command. Perhaps meaning that life is naught but a simulation in a computer, and our collective game show has ended. Sticking to what we intuit in contemporary culture is that the hippies believed in determinism, probability, and free will when they said in their philosophy and songs, which they have no doubt borrowed from the Romantics, the idealists and the Eastern philosophies, that life is like a play and the world is its theater. So do you want a bit part, or would you rather be the main performer? The future can be set, or it can be flexible. Life is a paradox. You can live it ordinary, or you can take a gamble and live it to the full, or extraordinary. It's up to you and the choices that you make. All you have to do is think positive for yourself, live out your dreams and create opportunities by putting the right ideas inside your skull to achieve your personal targets. So take a chance on life and release your inner potential, and it will give rise to your self-confidence and self-belief. At the end of the day, it's all about choices. The ones that you do and then the ones that you don't, which create consequences. Yes. Choose with your heart, because your decisions are the only ones that really count, and the way that you act on them is the difference between you being really alive, or you being a philosophical zombie, a mystic sleeper, or the living dead. So use your free will and grab the bull by the horns and play the part that is your ideal destiny, and when it is scribed on your grave after your death, let it be said that this person lived their life to the full, and they did not simply lay down, live and die, or follow the herd. And because of this, their life was extraordinary. Basically, life's ideal plan is to find out why you are here, and to make some positive choices, and then express yourself, and live your life to your personal best. Another thing that often comes up in the hippie psyche, and is on par with determinism, probability, and free will, are changes. these changes can be felt on a global level, when there is a global natural or unnatural disaster such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, pollution, or World War III. The hippies used their free will on dealing with the former by working with charities to bring aid to the affected areas, and the latter by trying to raise people's awareness by having peace marches and protest sit-ins, such as the campaign for nuclear disarmament, anti-industrious protests, and Greenpeace. They even have influences in local and national politics with the Green Party. Changes also come in the form of the brief encounter, when something or someone comes into your life that brings a transformation on a personal level. They can also appear on the social and psychological level. 1 minute you can have it all and your life is in harmony, and the next minute you can have nothing and your life is dysfunctional, or vice versa, or it swings back and forth between the two. Whatever it is, we are meant to embrace the change and learn from it, and then either good will be got, or a lesson will be learnt from it. The way that I see it is that, as Timothy Leary says, the medium is the message. Think for yourselves and always question authority. Basically, we look at our choices, or the most likely paths, with our free will, and then choose the best choice, or the most probable choice, perhaps using our sixth sense to guide us to reach the most desired outcome. Well, the free will and determinism argument has been going on from time immemorial, and there are good arguments on both sides. They suggest these days that our genes, mental faculties, and our environments process our minds, and that our reality is inside our own heads, determined from sensory input and our memories. They go on to suggest that there is no meaning to life except our subjective realities, that is focused on our personal achievements and our own preferences, taken from the positive and negative results from our personal and cultural histories. In a nutshell, we have no free will. We are just a complex biological computer system that is subject to the laws of physics. Further, with chaos theory, they simply state that we cannot predict the weather, for it is determined by sequential and simultaneous minor events influencing the weather that we have. A tiny beat of a butterfly's wings in Spain can influence the weather in America, causing a thunderstorm or rain. When using this as an analogy, they postulate that free will only seems to be real, whereas in reality, it is nothing other than a neural weather system, creating the illusion that we make our own choices, when in fact we do not. Let's take our eating habits for example. We tend to eat what is available, or in harmony with our generation, the seasons, or our environment, and the same can be said for all our so-called choices that we make, from the books that we read, to the music that we collect or play, to the television, cinema, theater, sports or shows that we tend to watch, to our beliefs, be it religion, spirit, science or philosophy, in the guise of atheism, rationalism, skepticism or agnosticism, all the way to our social choices, politics, status or our ambitions, on through to our health and fitness habits that we execute. Basically, most people live inside the box and are like chemical robots that are determined by outside influences, genetics and conditioning that spark off subjective reactions, habits and disciplines, not choices. So there is no free will, just cause and effect. I personally think that we do have free will, and that if one wants to be successful, it's like that of a team sports game, because as we gather and learn our talents, techniques and tactics combined with our speed, strength, stamina and agility plus our instincts, perseverance, luck, our power, courage and enthusiasm, plus our accuracy, clinical and prolific mind-body control, and last, but not least, our quality, desire, motivation, and anticipation. We learn to take control of ourselves for the game, and then we compete and play as a team, and gain experience as we score points or goals. We also suffer, or learn from the consequences of our decisions and the reactions of our actions that we make that coincide within the boundaries and the rules of the sport, and just like life. We have all these properties, yet there is also an element of chance, and we often take a stab in the dark, or make an irrational choice, or something out of the blue happens that totally changes the direction or momentum of the game. On the other hand, it is quite often said that life is all about swings and roundabouts, and this is true. But it is also climbing frames, obstacle courses, seesaws, slides, paddling pools and sandpits, and let us not forget that when the playing is done, that we settle down with our parents and rest in the grass and bathe in the sun as we consume the food and beverages that they have ever so kindly provided for us. It could also be seen as a computer game, which is an allusion to life, where we are born into the world and we have to learn how to gain or sociological and environmental balance or equilibrium to survive and to make a profit out of our existence, to procreate, as we all are driven to find, harness and refine love in not only our lovers, but also in our children. Ironically, it's not that dissimilar to what is actually taking place for most people. In the game we want food, clothes and shelter, and to do this we need to get a job in order to acquire the money to pay for it. In the job, we will be part of a team as we use our talents and skills to work within the regulations of our workplace. When we are not at work, we are the homemakers, and an ideal stereotypical heterosexual homemaker has a home, a partner, and eventually, when the time is right, and to complete the home, some kids, which was elucidated in Homer's book, The Odyssey, where Odysseus finds eternity within his children. In other gender roles, such as the LGBTQ community, the home and its needs may vary. Outside of both the workplace and the home, we have a collection of like-minded friends, associates, activities, and hobbies, making our lives complete. As with the workplace, there are rules that are set in place to give order from chaos. As we go up the levels, there are more choices, opportunities, and variables, giving a little more to the mix, plus serendipity and synchronicity add a more spiritual flavor as our individuality, God and potential destiny merge. Life can be cozy, fun, and all in order, or it can be dysfunctional, chaotic, and random. And let's not forget that if we don't jump up the levels, or we lose if we do not keep up with or follow the rules of the game that can be found within Geist, morphogenic resonance, or the rights of the Constitution. Although they are seemingly diverse to each other, they would explain a lot about life, or how to fit into life's plan, if sought. Anyway, I must go now, so I send my love and I hope that you enjoy the day ahead. Lots of love, Joan. P.S. In a nutshell, Ellie, with the computer, one can question the question until one reaches a subsidence of knowledge referring to the total conclusion, which is not necessarily the absolute truth or the answer. When a computer goes through this process, it can conclude, but not hypothesize, the outcome that is determined from its hardware and software of the computer. Whereas for life, one reflects on one's life's issues and then life in general, and that what is reality, that ironically leads to the question of are we alive at all, and it is that question that separates us from the computer, or a virtual consciousness, because we are not a process of elimination, or a chatbot, we are a free-thinking individual and one spirits. That unlike the computer is able to think outside the box through or with our intuition, which is our connection to God or spirit that is as one with all and everything. Like a glass of Coke. God is the drink. Life is the Coke and the spirits are the individual bubbles that rise from the bottom of the glass. Like that with evolutionary gameplay, where in life we consume and destroy our environments in order to survive and procreate, along with incompleteness theory, where we evolve beyond our reality and rise to the surface of the drink and then beyond into the memories of God, where our collective memories of our pasts, present and future that were forged within the spiritual cosmic game show called life on earth, where we, the God seeds, break free from the drink into the living memories of the ultimate consumer and destroyer of all reality that is nothing short than infinite consciousness that we conclude is within the mind of God. Where the God seeds that are the coming together of the biological robot or computer with spirit or God's supernal creative intuition within the matrix or its environment merge, and they activate the soul and create our future. So we, the children of God, get to choose whether we turn the game show off with World War III to reach our, or humanity's completion, or to align with God's peak potential of what it is, that it, and us needs to create eternal matter, and the heavens, and our part in the play is our morality, humility, our unconditional love, compassion and virtuosity that is activated through our life's karmic passage or path and our humanity. Lots of love, Joan.